Yes, welcome into Sportsbook Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, Thursday, January 12th, big game breakdown. NFL playoffs are here. Should be the best weekend of the season. Divisional round. We'll start with the Saturday games, Seattle and Atlanta, and then the Patriots home against the Texans, the biggest playoff spread since 1998. And play of the day, loaded show coming up. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. It was a slow night in the world of sports. But we still have a lot to go over, and we start with bad bets in college basketball. Memphis, a 3-point move, bet up from 1.5 to 4.5. They lose by doubles.
Yeah, I mean, they were betting the hell out of Tubby Smith. I guess returning to the place where he began his head coaching career. A ton of market support for Memphis, but kind of a fluky final. Memphis lost by 12. It's 4.5-point chalk, but that game was tied 69-69 with just over 2 minutes left. And then Tulsa closed out the game on a 12-0 run. That being said, the Tigers never really had a shot at covering the inflated price after the big line move. That was a bad bet.
Also, Temple. They lost by double digits, and there was a big move in that game.
Yeah, and again, you're going to see this on a day-in, day-out basis in college hoops. You're going to see a lot of line moves in college hoops just about every single day. The markets, it doesn't take that much money to move a number in college hoops compared to other sports. The limits are lower. The books adjust quickly, so it's no shock to see a couple of these 2 3-point line moves in college hoops from last night turn out to be bad bets as opposed to bad beats.
Yeah, and the market moved on Minnesota. We're not the only ones who bet on the Gophers. They no-show. They couldn't do anything on offense on the road, and it was a good spot.
Yeah, hey, let's give Sparty some credit. You know, this is a team that looked like they were in real trouble a couple of weeks ago. But here it is, the heart of Big Ten play, and Tom Izzo's got them playing their best basketball right now.
Bad beats, all the Knicks. I don't even know if we're allowed to say this. They've lost 9 to 10. But, Rose comes back, actually played well. They booed him when he was introduced in Philly. They're up 10 with 2:30, and they're outscored 15-4 down the stretch by Philly. And how about this? This is from ESPN Stats and Info. The Sixers had lost 78 in a row when trailing by 15 plus. The last win in that situation, March of 2015 against the Kings, which, yes, they had trailed by 15 or more 78 times in the last few years. That's how bad the organization has been.
That's the stunning stat right there. It's not that they lost 78 in a row when trailing by 15 or more.
Yes.
It's the fact that they've trailed by 15 or more 78 times since March 2015. Hilarious last night. The fans chanting, "Trust the process," after Joel Embiid banked in a three. I always enjoy Philadelphia fans. They are creative. But don't look now. The Sixers, the hapless, awful Philadelphia 76ers are 4-1 straight up, 5-0 against the spread. Their last 5 ball games, only loss coming by 4. They covered basically wire to wire at Boston. That's their best 5-game stretch in about 4 years.
Yeah.
Brutal beat if you had the Knicks, though. You're up doubles with 2.5 left. You're supposed to cover the spread when you're laying 1.5.
I love Embiid. When he was a rookie, he tweeted at Rihanna, "Hey, let's go out," and she fires back, "Get back to me when you're an all-star." Hey, I'll pick you up at 6. Looks like that date's going to happen. This kid can play.
He sure can. And, but look, when you're winning games because your center is banking in 3-pointers, trust the process.
Trust the process. That's a great chant. Wizards led late in Boston. Then the wheels came off. They got the lead with 5 minutes left. Next thing you know, the Celtics were up 12.
Yeah, Wizards led 99-98, 5.5 left. By the 2.5-minute mark, or 3 minutes later, Boston's up a dozen, as you mentioned. So, what's that, a 13-0 run for the Celtics down the stretch. And the Wizards on the second night of back-to-backs. Look, we talked about this on yesterday's Sportsbook. Their bench can't provide a lot or isn't providing a lot. On the second night of back-to-backs, the starters wore down the stretch. Boston, the fresher team, when they made that big fourth quarter run.
At Pauly Howard, at Teddy_covers on Twitter. I was going back and forth with a fan, a viewer on Twitter. I said, go after. You want to take Memphis? That's fine. I agree with Teddy. It was a correlated parlay. I know OKC was ticked off because they were blown out the last time. But this was point spread drama here, and Memphis had it close much of the way, and then they couldn't get the key stop down the stretch.
No, the entire fourth quarter. Paulie played within one possession of the point spread. OKC closed 4.5 or 5. The lead bounced between 4 and 8 for basically the entire fourth. The Grizz cut it to 2 once, but only once. It didn't last long. OKC never got it above 8. Yeah, point spread drama throughout, but Memphis couldn't get that one big shot. OKC gets the win and the cover. An interesting game to talk about.
Yep, and Floyd Mayweather did the car wash yesterday. He went through all the TV and radio shows, a lot of the TV shows rather, in Bristol for ESPN, talking up the fight. Maybe he could try to make this McGregor fight happen. Mayweather wants $100 million. I talked to our friend Tony Miller at Golden Nugget. He would make Mayweather a $5,000 favorite. Who the hell's going to bet that? It'll be nothing but money on the dog. That price is outrageous. Although, certainly, can McGregor even win a round if the fight would happen?
Well, I mean, the bottom line for me is I don't know. But when it comes to Money Mayweather and his ability to technically outmaneuver his opponents, that's where McGregor would have his problems. But at plus 2,000, look, the books don't mind if they get completely one-sided action, as long as one-sided action on the wrong side, and then they could keep all of it. So obviously that's not a market number from Tony Miller over the Golden Nugget. That's his personal number, but I don't argue with it. Mayweather at 50-1. Yeah, he deserves to be pretty significant chalk.
Yeah, press conference would be entertaining. Be better than the Pacquiao fight, too. Floyd made $300 million for the Pacquiao fight. Wants nothing to do with a rematch. At least that's what he said. Now, this is up at 5 dimes, some of these bettable scenarios for the championship games.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing to put up there. Let's look at the AFC ones first. These are potential lines for championship, the 4 matchups in each of the 2 conferences. So in the AFC, if Houston wins at New England, they face off at Pittsburgh. Steelers 9.5 minus 120, minus $5 on the money line. Chiefs would be 7.5 over the Texans. So right now, as you can see, based on these matchups, the markets have Pittsburgh a couple of points higher than KC. Although, given the fact that the Chiefs are now home chalk in that game, where they were originally home dogs, you could think that number might have been a little bit higher earlier. Patriots would be 4-point favorites over the Steelers. Again, these are look-ahead lines. These are bettable, but they're look-ahead lines. And the Patriots would be 6.5-point chalk over the Kansas City Chiefs. Extra juice on New England.
Yeah, these NFC numbers. How about Dallas 3 at home against Atlanta? My God, what would that total be if that's the matchup in the NFC Championship game? That'd be an aerial circus.
See, I don't think that total would be ridiculous because the Cowboys play slow. Atlanta, who's been an over machine. We'll talk about the Falcons in just a few minutes when it comes to over machine time. But the Cowboys, with the pace of play, the pace that they play at, haven't been a strong over team. But here, let's just flash these NFC numbers real quick. Seattle will be 1 over Green Bay. Again, these are bettable numbers from 5 dimes. You can go to at SBR. You can click right on a 5 dimes link and go there, set up an account if you're interested. Dallas 3.5 over Seahawks. Extra juice on the Seattle side. Falcons 3 over Green Bay. And I honestly don't think that line would hold. I think if Atlanta wins and Green Bay wins, that line's coming shorter than 3. But right now, that's the bettable number. And, of course, Dallas, Atlanta, also 3s on that one.
All right, let's rumble. Up next, big game breakdown. The Seahawks and the Falcons. And then we'll get to the Texans and the Patriots on Sportsbit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
That's right, the 8th annual SBR Forum Bash will be held at the breathtaking all-inclusive Hard Rock Hotel in Punta Cana on Super Bowl weekend. Join Natalie Rydstrom and the Odds Couple as they mingle with SBR pros and have fun under the sun. Stay tuned for video coverage of Bash activities, including a $5,000 poker tournament sponsored by uwager.eu. Only on SBR, your sportsbook authority since 1999.
Back on Sportsbit Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Here we go, divisional round. Saturday, 1:30 Pacific on Fox. The Seahawks take on Atlanta. Falcons are 5-51 the total. This line surprises me because Atlanta, you would think Seattle, after they beat a phony Detroit team, people would overreact and say, wow, they look great. Look how they ran the ball, the playoff experience. Not the case. People are buying the Falcons, and they have scored 33 points in 10 of their 16 games. Now, what home team is going down this weekend? I thought, last year, I don't want to say fluke, but last year, all 4 home teams won off the bye. That was the first time that happened in 11 years, since 1990. Teams off the bye, 69-23 straight up, 10-2 the last 3 years straight up. And we've had upsets where 15-1, 14-2, 13-3 have got beat. Not only have they lost at home, they were laying doubles in those games. So anything happens in the last 10 years, it's some wild shit that goes on in this round.
It sure does. And you talk about how last year was the anomaly after 10 straight years with one of the top 2 seeds in at least one of the conferences going down. But it hasn't been a bevy of upsets. You talk about that since 1990, and I hate the sample sizes since 1990. In my mind, that's too long. But still, you're seeing the rested team winning 3 out of 4 in straight up fashion, and that's about mathematically what we would expect. But you say you're surprised that it's been Atlanta money. Not a ton of Atlanta money, but the Falcons holding pretty steady at 5. There's been over money. The total bet up from 49.5 to 51, even some 51.5s popping up. But I'm not surprised. The Falcons made a lot of people a lot of money this year. They were a good point spread team. They cashed a ton of over tickets. Again, talk about that in just a minute. And Seattle in the win over Detroit. People are going to bet on what they saw last that looked good. Seahawks weren't dominant against the Lions. That point spread was still in doubt into the fourth quarter. It wasn't one of those situations where they completely controlled the game. And Seattle's offense hasn't really worked as well away from home this season. So I'm not shocked that Atlanta's in this point spread range. In fact, of all of the quote-unquote, you think the public teams that won last week are going to get a ton of support. The only one's getting a ton of support that I see is Green Bay, which is a game that we'll preview tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. Playoff experience. A lot of people think it's a big deal. Since 2010, the Seahawks have 9 playoff wins. The Falcons have 1. And this was a rematch of a few years ago. The Falcons won 30-28 at home over the Seahawks in 2012. Matt Ryan, while he might be the MVP, he's 1-4 straight up and 0-5 against the spread career in the playoffs, 4-1 to the over. The only under was that debacle in New York when they lost 24-2. And remember, they blew a big lead in his only playoff win, and he had to rally late, and they had to set up for the game-winning field goal.
That being said, Matt Ryan marched him down the field and set up that game-winning field. I don't fault Matt Ryan for the loss to Seattle back in 2012. As you mentioned, his only career a playoff win, and I don't fault him for the fact that his team was laying 2.5 or 3 in that ballgame, which cost them the point spread cover. But when it comes to meaningful playoff experience, look, Seattle's playing multiple, not one and done. They have won at least one playoff game and gotten to play another in each of the last 5 seasons. Remember, they won one last year and then lost week 2 when they had to go down to Carolina. The Falcons, on the other hand, have not been in the playoffs at all since 2012.
Yeah, new look Seahawks last week. I don't know. I think it was said more about Detroit, but Rawls finally healthy, 161 yards. Reese was on the field for 33 of the 73 snaps, but the Hawks only used a fullback on 107 snaps all season. And also, which was key, Rawls had so much success, they didn't have to use Wilson to scramble and make plays with his feet.
Well, yeah, and there was a huge difference in pace. With that style, with the fullback on the field, Marcel Reese, a guy who had, 4 straight Pro Bowl seasons in Oakland, and then he had a PED issue, and the Raiders cut him, and he landed here, in Seattle. Reese got the game ball last week, from Russell. Well, that's how important he was to the Seahawks' offensive game plan. I mean, you say, all right, what happened in the regular season that's not happening in the playoffs? Seattle struggled to run the football in the regular season. And they played at a fairly an average pace. And they're ranked number 14 in the NFL, 27.5 seconds per snap. Against the Lions last week, they ran the football. They ran with a fullback. And their pace was as slow as any team in the NFL. If measured against all other teams in the regular season, they would have been dead last. So maybe it is a change of style for Seattle. And anyone who's focusing on regular season numbers isn't going to be able to notice that change of style.
Yeah, well, that's the way to beat Atlanta. That's the game plan. Slow the game down, keep that high-powered offense off the field, and run right at them. The Falcons' run defense, 29th in Football Outsiders, gave up 4.5 yards per rush.
Yeah, and of course, the Seahawks, they didn't run any I formation all year. It was kind of in waiting. They found a fullback. Rawls finally healthy. Here's the offensive coordinator, Tom Cable. It makes the game kind of normal for us. That's what we've been chasing So we had the opportunity to do that last week. So, yeah, it's a different game plan for Seattle right now, but that's on the offensive side. On the defensive side, Pauly, they're up against it going against this Atlanta offense.
Yeah, Cable, the O-line coach. This offense, statistically, one of the best ever. Not only the best in the NFL, but faced the number 2 schedule in terms of defensive quality. Remember, they went up and down the field at Seattle, and there was a controversy late where they no call on Sherman against Julio. Julio said he's going to talk to the refs and let them know, watch the holding on this Seattle defense, which kind of the key to their success is hold. They're not going to call it every play.
All right, and this is something we've said on Sportsbook a handful of times, but we got to really talk about this for a minute. Atlanta was 1.2 yards per play better than an average offense this year. And they did that despite facing the number 2 schedule in terms of defensive toughness. Only 7 other teams finished within a yard per play of Atlanta, and they're 6.7 yards per play for the season, the highest number in the NFL over the last 5 years. So no surprise, we're talking about a team that went 13-2-1 to the over as a result. By far the number 1 over team in the NFL. And the only 2 unders they played, at Denver, where every game went under, the elite pass defense, and that was when the Broncos were still good over the first half of the season. And then they lost 24-15 in the ultimate flat spot right before the bye at Philly. So the only 2 unders they played came against top-notch pass defenses, which Seattle, in theory, is supposed to have.
Yeah, that's knockout information there. Ryan likes to spread it around through touchdown passes to 13 different players, but you're going to hear this all week, and rightfully so. Is he ready for the prime time? This is a guy who's got it done in the regular season, but again, only has 1 career playoff win, and they pay him a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, here's his quote, talking about his playoff failures in the past. I don't worry about it too much. One thing I've learned throughout my career is if you spend time worrying about that, you're not spending time worrying about the things that are going to make a difference on game day. So I focus on getting myself prepared mentally and physically, making sure I'm on top of the plan and making sure I'm ready to go the best I can on Saturday. Here's Dan Quinn, Atlanta's head coach, talking about his first playoff game. I would hope it totally come across how fast and physical that we play. We're going to go out and attack in all 3 phases in this game. Those are the things we stand for in our program, so we want that to totally come to life. The players here, we have a real clear vision of how we want to play. I think that helps a bunch. We're not trying to be anything different than who we are.
Jimmy Vaccaro told me on the radio show he thinks it'll be late Seattle money. You agree?
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some Seahawks buyback. Again, the sharpest bettors tend to look for defense, and the Seahawks' defensive numbers throughout the regular season better than Atlanta's.
Up next, Saturday night, Patriots. Biggest spread in the playoffs since '98. They're at home against the Texans. Also a rematch. We'll get to that coming up on Sportsbit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on Sportsbit, big game breakdown continues. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Saturday night, CBS, Texans and the Patriots, 5:15 Pacific. New England, 44.5 the total. Also a rematch here. The Texans went 2-6 on the road in the regular season. One of the wins in Jacksonville when Osweiler threw for 90 yards. That's it. And then they got Lamar Miller going. Luck had some key turnovers, and they won at Indy. It was 27-0 earlier in the season at New England on a Thursday night, and also Brissett got the start for the Patriots in that game. Texans, with a conservative game plan, did nothing on offense. They didn't reach New England territory until the fourth quarter, Teddy.
Yeah, and, we definitely want to put an asterisk by that because it was a short week. It was a Thursday night game, and it was coming off a huge win. They had playoff revenge versus Kansas City the previous Sunday, then travel for a Thursday night game. Certainly Houston didn't play very well, but when you don't reach Patriots territory until the fourth quarter, you let Jacoby Brissett score 27 on you, that's not your A game. So they got shut out the last time, but they didn't get shut out last week against Oakland. No, they did something that they hadn't been able to do all season long. They scored touchdowns in the red zone, 3 TDs in 3 tries. But other than that, I don't know if they solved any of their offensive issues against the Raiders. They still had the same problems that have been plaguing them for much of the campaign.
Yeah, and they got Lamar Miller back, and they couldn't get him going. Remember, he had a carry for 19 yards. You take that out, his other 30 carries went for 54 total yards.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting less than 2 yards per on the majority of your carries. And, of course, the defense controlled the game. They got 10 points in the scoreboard on a couple of scoring drives that didn't need a first down. And then, of course, Osweiler kind of managed the game against a pretty mediocre defense. But when you're talking about a running game that couldn't get going against Oakland, it better get going here against New England, or it could be just as ugly this time as it was the last time.
Oh, excellent point. Oh, if they fall behind and they can't run the ball and Osweiler has to throw, holy cow. Again, the biggest point spread in the playoffs since 98. And our stat guy loves this. It bothers him that you see the talking heads in the national media talk about number one defense in the NFL, number one defense. Well, the Texans are number one for fewest yards allowed, but they also number one for fewest plays on the field. They face 73 fewer snaps than a league average team, which is the equivalent of playing less than 15 full regular season games. But the players did talk about how much it means to them that they were number one, so maybe you work harder and you play above your abilities, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Texans defense was the dominant unit on the field last week. You look at why is Houston here. They haven't been a really good offensive team this season. They're here because that defense has been the dominant unit for them repeatedly. But, and the football outsiders, the advanced metric numbers, say that Houston's got a very good defense, but not number one. The FBO advanced metric stats has them ranked number 8 in the NFL, but they're thinking like they're number one. The talking heads are going to say like they're number one. And oh, by the way, Tom Brady preparing for them like they're the number one defense in the NFL. Here's Brady's quote. "We're playing a really good team. We're playing a team that has earned this opportunity. They have the number one defense in the league. I studied them all day yesterday. They have a damn good defense. We put everything into it this week. We empty the tank in our practices, which we always do. And then you come out at the end of the week with confidence, ready to go out there and show everyone that we're prepared and that we can play." Brady never gives anyone bulletin board material. Nothing but respect for Houston defensively.
Yes. What do you expect New England to do on offense here? As they get Amendola back, they should be ready to go off the bye as well. And it's certainly a different ballgame when you got Brady in there as opposed to Brissett. And who knows? Maybe they held on to some plays here with some trickeration if need be later in the game. And Blunt had the flu earlier in the week. How about that? No one talks about him. He had an unbelievable year running the ball and getting in the end zone.
Sure, but when we look at Brady and the New England offense, which has been a balanced offense all season, which has the ability to run clock, which has the ability to grind out first downs with the short passing game, which has the ability to hit home runs, even with the injuries they've suffered at the tight end position this season, Patriots offense, in my mind, trumps any defense in the NFL. But when we're talking about a 16-point spread, it matters that the opposing defense is really good. Let me read the Belichick quote here, because he's another guy who's really talking up this Houston Texans defense. Quote, "Again, a very athletic group. A lot of linebacker defensive end types that can run, are long, have good playing strength, quickness, good tacklers, well coached, good fundamentally, a lot of good players, talented, disruptive, do a good job in all areas. A good situational team, red area, third down, 2-minute, all of those situations, as well as just being a good, strong, stout defense on all downs. The one thing Belichick and the Patriots offensive game plan really has to minimize in this contest is hits on Tom Brady. I don't think we'll see Brady in a ton of 7-step drops holding the football. I think the ball will get out of his hands quickly, which probably bodes well when it comes to play of the daytime."
Yes, and worth pointing out, the Patriots have had the Texans' number over the years, and what a great break in as far as a scheduling spot. You got a great game Sunday with Pittsburgh and Kansas City. They battle it out in the Patriots, big home favorites, and if they win, they're at home next Sunday for the AFC Championship game. So those are two great games Sunday we'll get to on tomorrow's show. Money time, play of the day. 47-25 on the football season. Great job there. We're 7-3 in our last 10. Apologies for the Minnesota play, but what can you do? Play of the day. Back to this game, Teddy. What are we doing?
Game number 3, or betting number, I should say, 303-304. The Patriots and the Texans. Let's take them under the total. Among the most underrated stats out there, guess what? No team gave up fewer points than New England. A full 34 fewer points less than any other team in the league. Houston's got the number 1 overall defense, yardage defense. Patriots the number 1 scoring defense. Look for a relatively low-scoring game. We'll take the Patriots and Texans under 44.5 for our play of the day.
All right, very good there. Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Green Bay, and Dallas coming up tomorrow. And, of course, all the NBA action. Busy show coming up on the weekend preview. We'll talk to you then. Thanks for watching. Tell your friends. Playoff time here on Sportsbit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.